Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, record-breaking rain in the valley. We'll talk about today's unusual weather, then hear from a group that is against a bond measure to increase funding for Maricopa's county medical system, and see how families are giving back to the community. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Richard Rellis in for Ted Simons. It has never rained as much in Phoenix as it did today. Tropical storm Norbert dumped more than 3 inches of rain at Sky Harbor Airport, a new all-time record. The governor declared a state of emergency. Here to talk about our severe weather is Randy Cervini. I've messed up the last name. We just practiced. An Arizona State University climatologist. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Cervini.
Right.
That's it. I know weather climatology is a very complicated, complex science. So I will try to ask you as scientifically as I can. What happened?
Well, this was our attempt to try to be like Florida, basically. We had all this moisture that was associated with this dying tropical storm that was called Norbert. It was actually a hurricane along the Baja coast. And that moisture was pushed right up into Arizona. There it started to interact with our topography, with our mountains. It got pushed up. And we had a polar system that came through from California. All those things came together to just dump tons of rain right over the Phoenix metropolitan area.
The storm was forecasted to hit a little bit Sunday. What delayed it, and had it hit Sunday, would we have not seen as much rain?
I think it would have been a rainmaker no matter when it happened, but the timing was the critical thing. And it was simply that the moisture was taking a little longer to make its way up from the Baja area into Arizona than what we had originally anticipated. But we had forecasted this storm incredibly well. The National Weather Service had warnings about this all the way into late last week. So people hopefully took it into account, and that's saved a lot of people, I think, property damage and lives even.
Well, and I guess that's the question. In Arizona, we're used to rain, and we sort of laugh it off that it was just going to be blowing dust. What made this unusual? Even when we've seen tropical storms dying, we don't see this deluge. What specifically, you mentioned the things that came together to make it happen, but was there something that happened overnight specifically that really triggered the rain to?
Well, I think, people get the misinterpretation that this was a monsoon thunderstorm. It really wasn't. It happened during our monsoon season, and so it will be counted up as monsoonal moisture. But monsoon thunderstorms tend to be really localized. They hit New River or they hit Laveen. They don't hit the entire metro area. But here we had this particular mass of moisture causing havoc all the way from Goodyear over to Apache Junction. I mean, the entire metro area was experiencing rainfalls like we really haven't seen.
What made it sit over us then all those hours? I mean, again, we do think about monsoon storms, or even winter rains seem to move through fairly quickly. What made this sit for hours?
Well, it actually wasn't sitting, but what was happening is the moisture kept being pumped up. If you imagine the Norbert as a giant water pump, it was just continually feeding moisture all the way up into Arizona. And so that moisture, when it came into Arizona, was being pushed up, proceeded to dump out the rain, and then more moisture behind it just simply kept dumping it out. So it was like a continual loop that somebody had stuck the VCR on repeat, and it just kept going over and over and over again.
We know this set the record. And I guess there's two things to discuss. We'll start with the record rainfall. What did it beat?
Well, this was the most rainfall that we have measured, and we measure rainfall for the valley at Sky Harbor Airport. This was the most rainfall measured in a single day since we've been taking records, which all go back all the way to basically the turn of this last century, to the 1900s. We had 3.29 inches of rain occurring during that time. And of course, realize we're talking about one day, but most of that rain obviously happened within a space of just about maybe 8 to 10 hours. So this was an incredibly intense rainfall experience, something that Phoenix had never experienced before.
So what was the record before then? How far back do we have to go? 1911, I think you were mentioning?
Yes, there was actually an event that occurred all the way back in 1911 that was a 2-day event, so that the 24-hour period was a little bit more rainfall than what we had. They were up into the 4 inches rain. But
A 2-day event meaning
it
overnight?
it started in the evening of one day and finished in the evening of the next day. So
Sort of like how we were expecting this to go, but it just started early in the morning today.
Right.
Yeah.
So all the rain that we have that you're hearing on the news today was a calendar day. It's rain that simply happened on this Monday.
But 1911 was a day that was overnight to the next day, and it had more rain than this.
Right. And we're actually digging in, because we haven't had any reason to do this, we're digging into the old records now to try to find out exactly what happened during that time. I'm anticipating it was probably something similar to what this was, that it was a dying tropical storm maybe that came up the Gulf of California and started dumping rains. But we're still going back to the records to see if we can figure that out.
Some of the recent saws about Phoenix are, well, the rains never come, the rains pass us by, there's a big bubble over our city. This seems to belie that, or is this the exception that proves the rule, that it never rains in Phoenix except when it does rain in Phoenix?
I think that this was just finally the luck of the draw that we ended up getting this kind of rain. We have had the moisture from tropical storms move into the state before. People might remember back in '97, there was moisture from an old hurricane called Nora that was anticipated to come in and hit Phoenix, but it never did. It did hit Yuma and it hit western Arizona and dumped 5 inches of rain in the course of a day in that part, but it didn't come into Phoenix. Phoenix today was the big winner in terms of rainfall.
And so with the tropical storms coming, we've seen some word that storms are getting more intense, more frequent. Is this going to be an event we can predict, that when tropical storms start dying and they hit Phoenix, we might see events like this, or is it unpredictable?
Well, actually, for our drought situation, this rainfall isn't going to help, but it does tell us that we're going to have some interesting things, because this particular summer we've had a whole bunch of hurricanes out on the coast of Mexico, on the west coast of Mexico. The Atlantic has been incredibly calm. We've only had 3 named storms in the Atlantic so far. That's because we're anticipating that this is going to be an El Nino year, that this winter we're going to have a warming of the Pacific Ocean. If that's the case, we're going to get a whole bunch of winter storms to help us bring in some more moisture. Not that some people here in Phoenix need it right now, but by this winter it's going to hopefully create enough snow that we're going to have a really great snowpack. So we're anticipating that the fact that we had this storm come through, it's going to actually lead to a better winter than what we might otherwise have.
So this doesn't put a ding in the drought now because it's summer rain that gets soaked up and then washes away. What is the situation in California? They're waiting then for the snowpack as well.
Right, and this moisture actually, not much of it made it into California. They did have some storms in Southern California, but we were the big winners in the Southwest. We got, if you want to think about it, we got that much rain. The problem is that it all hit so fast and it hit the metropolitan area as opposed to the watershed, that it's going to go down and not be able to be really recovered. So we need to have the water occur up on the watersheds so that we can hold it back by the dams.
And the other thing is, we saw the footage of sort of some of the streets flooding today, is how Arizona, how Phoenix is equipped to handle rain like this, because we don't get it this often. Are we ill prepared, do you think?
Well, that's a good question, and as a climatologist, I can tell you that this was a really rare event, that the kind of rainfalls, again, that we were seeing, we seem to use this phrase a lot this summer, but these were 1,000-year events, that they shouldn't happen with very regularity across the metro area. But it was an event that is not what engineers designed for. So the fact that some of the pumps weren't able to handle that kind of water, not that surprising. Whether we should have to revise those, well, we have to see if these things are going to become more common. If they are, then we might have to adjust some engineering codes.
If the 1,000-year floods become dozen-year floods. But is that really a possibility, that as we see storms become more volatile, whether it's man-made or not, due to climate change, are we going to see more results like this?
Well, the one thing that we have really kind of have a consensus on in terms of climate change is that with a warming climate, you get more rain, and usually more intense rain. So if that's the case, it is likely that storms will become more frequent across the globe. Any one particular place, kind of hard to define that. But as a globe as a whole, yes, we should get more rain under a warming climate.
And you predict that this winter will be a good test case to see what a warming Pacific Ocean does to Arizona's winter.
Exactly. El Nino is something that we here in the Southwest really look forward to in terms of replenishing our water. So we are hoping that that warm Pacific Ocean will help us draw in lots of storms this winter and create a very substantial snowpack.
And for Arizonans, we're rooting for snow up in the mountains to reduce
Right.
the fears of drought getting
Right.
into the Colorado.
And also, obviously, for the recreational activities like skiing, they are all really cheering on that we're going to hopefully have an El Nino this winter.
Well, we'll see what happens. Thanks for joining us. We'll have you back to see how the winter went.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The Colorado River has carved over 600 miles of canyons in southern Utah and northern Arizona. As sublime as these chasms are, to travelers, they pose a seemingly insurmountable problem. Just how do you get to the other side? A highway marker on US 89A commemorates a successful effort that for nearly 60 years did just that, Lee's Ferry. Mormon pioneer John D. Lee came here in 1871. He established a ferry service across the Colorado River at the only natural point for 600 miles. Lee, seen here seated on his coffin, was executed in 1877 for his role in the Mountain Meadows Massacre, when 120 immigrants heading to California were murdered in Utah. The ferry operated for 52 more years, transporting thousands of hikers, horses, wagons, and even small automobiles across the river. Only the railroad and finally in 1929, the Navajo Bridge made Lee's Ferry obsolete. Today, the original Navajo Bridge is reserved for pedestrians, while the new Navajo Bridge, built beside it in 1995, caters to cars and trucks. While the ferry itself is long gone, the name remains. Lee's Ferry is now the terminus for thousands of awestruck sightseers rafting on the mighty Colorado River.
The Arizona Tax Research Association says a proposition to provide nearly $1 billion to the Maricopa Integrated Health System should not be approved. The pro side of the argument discussed Proposition 480 last week here on Arizona Horizon. Kevin McCarthy, president of the Arizona Tax Research Association, is here to tell us why Maricopa County voters should not approve the measure. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Richard.
Well, and last week when the pro side was on, there was a discussion. There was really no organized opposition to it. Are you the organized opposition to the proposition?
That might have been premature on their part to say that. Yeah, we've organized a campaign to try to defeat Proposition 480, and there's actually, I think, widespread opposition to that. So I doubt we will have the financing that they have, but we're going to give it our best effort.
And tell us what the no argument is.
You know, there's a lot of reasons why we think that this is a particularly bad idea, but I think the top one is that this is an extraordinarily large tax increase that the Maricopa Integrated Health System is asking for. And quite frankly, it's coming from an entity we think ought to be aggressively looking at downsizing its operation, not dramatically expanding it. For voters that have been around a while, they might note at the $935 million request that sounds like a lot of money. It is. It is the third largest bond request in the history of the state of Arizona, and you compare that with entities that have rather comprehensive requests in terms of taking care of the citizens, City of Phoenix, City of Tucson, Pima County, Maricopa County. This is a special district with a narrow public purpose asking for $935 million, $1.4 billion over the next 30 years. And we think actually that they ought to be, instead of again expanding their operation, ought to be looking aggressively to narrow that and working with private hospitals who don't support this to try to work in conjunction with taxpayers so we don't duplicate funding. We've been through a lot with healthcare in recent months with the expansion of Medicaid in Arizona, and my organization, being a taxpayer organization, surprised some folks that we supported Medicaid expansion. We didn't think that there was any other choice associated with that, with the propositions that we have to live by. However, it's an extraordinarily expensive undertaking. We're spending billions of dollars to deliver healthcare funding to the poor. We shouldn't duplicate any of those expenditures if we can avoid it. And that's what we continue to do in Maricopa County with a county hospital that is, in many respects, is sort of a relic of the old days where the county was the payer of last resort. That's why counties had county hospitals.
I mean, the county deals a lot with uninsured patients. One of your arguments is that we should expect fewer uninsured patients as healthcare reform kicks in?
Well, not only is that the case, we think that's the case now. In fact, since Medicaid expansion was put into place, there are 300,000 more Arizonans on access since January 1st. A full 25% of the Arizona population is on access. We can argue whether or not that's good or bad, or if that's going to change over time. I don't think it's going to. I think that the role that government's going to play in providing health care for the poor isn't going to reverse itself. And all we've seen since access was created is a steady growth in that. We think that's also another clear argument that what the future holds for delivering health care for the poor is going to be through the private hospitals that already do that. And the private hospitals have significant concerns that this proposal competes against them, and that unnecessarily so in that space.
Do private hospitals have an interest in, I mean, one of the entities they put up is the Burn Center, which is very timely, intensive care. Is there a private hospital that wants to take over that or wants to do that type of care?
First, we're not getting an opportunity to debate that. What we're getting an opportunity to debate is what the Maricopa Integrated Health System wants, which is $935 million to expand their operation.
Oh, sure, but if you're saying that private hospitals want to compete with this or want to get some of this, it would seem like because obviously the medical center they say is going to be right-sized, which I take to mean downsized. Right. But also the Burn Center, again, that seems like something that I don't know whether a private hospital wants to do that. Well,
St. Luke's actually has already begun to do that, and there is a burn center over there. I don't know whether or not if that could be transferred in its entirety over there. I don't believe that that's the singular question here. It is brought up a lot that the burn center is the most comprehensive burn center, not only in Arizona but in the Southwest. And I might add, what Maricopa County taxpayers, in addition to questioning the size of this, ought to question in the total framework for delivery of health care what role they're playing and why are they playing the role that they're playing. Why is it Maricopa County taxpayers fund an entity that looks very much like a statewide entity? Pima County taxpayers and are encouraging us to pass this. Find that curious. But Maricopa County taxpayers are being asked to support something that clearly is no longer a county responsibility.
Right. And the opposition, I mean, the organized opposition, are you getting funding from private hospitals? You mentioned they are against this. Are they funding
We're going to try to get funding from under every rock we can find it. The private providers that fund at least 80% of all the private care in the Valley have come out in public statements opposing
this. But have
this.
they funded it?
We'll do everything we can to try to secure funding from them and taxpayers alike to spread the message that we need to spread. That I might add, if this was a good idea, which it's not, it's horribly timed. The taxpayers of Maricopa County have just come out of the worst period in my career and maybe the history of the state of Arizona, where we lost incredible amounts of property value. That the effective tax rates on property taxpayers is much higher today than it was in 2009 before we went into the recession. This is loading on them an extraordinary responsibility that the property tax base isn't prepared to handle.
But again, as we wrap up, have hospitals written a check to you, or are you going to go look under
We're going
those
to do,
rocks? As you
I am
mentioned?
not sure how I'd put this. We're going to do everything we can to
Okay.
secure all the funding
But
we
you haven't gotten it
can
yet. Okay.
from everybody.
Excellent. Kevin, I'm sure we'll have you back before the
Appreciate
campaign
the
continues.
opportunity,
Appreciate you
Seth.
for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
In tonight's Giving and Leading segment, we take a look at a group that welcomes volunteers of all ages. Producer Christina Estes introduces us to Families Giving Back.
We are at Phoenix Mountain Nursing Center, and we are doing an art project with the senior residents. There are templates to draw and then scissors to cut out hearts.
It took Alex Scalar and Lisa Geiser more than 2 years to reach this stage.
We were looking for volunteer opportunities to do with our children, to start instilling the values of giving back. And we could not find any volunteer opportunities in the valley that we could do with our young children.
And so we just started, talking about it and kind of expressing our frustration, and one thing led to another, and we decided if it doesn't exist, let's create it, and so we did.
Kevin, tell me what color they are.
They came up with kid-friendly ideas like this art project and started pitching different groups.
Thank you.
The events that we create and host ourselves, really there aren't many that have an age restriction. We try to have something there from the littlest kids on up, whether it's going to a pantry and stocking the shelves with donations that the families bring. The little ones stock the low shelves, and the bigger ones stock the higher shelves. So there really is something for all ages.
I'm gonna make stripes.
7-year-old Dylan Conway doesn't mind skipping Saturday morning cartoons to create his own images.
It's a football course.
Although 103-year-old Bertha Rakowski considers herself more of a bingo player than artist, she still enjoys what she calls piddling around, especially with this younger group.
And they're just darling. Every one of these children are just darling.
A lot of our families, a lot of the children may not experience or have experience with being with the elderly. And so it's just really nice for them to be comfortable and engage with the residents. I don't know who has more fun, the kids or the seniors. And so it's just really a nice time to start teaching or instill those values about respecting elders and see how much they have to offer us.
Like everybody's all smiling and all the elder people are smiling, and it's nice to be in an environment like that.
Families Giving Back started pretty small, with Alex and Lisa rounding up friends for the first few events.
That's cool.
Since then, they've welcomed more than 500 families.
We would love to get a group photo of all of our little volunteers under their beautiful masterpiece. 2, 3, cheese!
While most events last 60 to 90 minutes, they often leave more than memories. In this case, a string of homemade hearts displayed in the dining room.
I love kids.
And others shared with new friends.
I'm gonna put them up in my bedroom. I already decided on where I'm gonna put them. So I'm gonna put these in my bedroom, and I get to look at them.
The group organizes volunteer events 2 to 4 times a month. You can find more information at familiesgivingback.org. Tuesday on Arizona Horizon, we'll talk about why job creation slowed last month and hear about an effort to inform teachers across Arizona about Asperger's syndrome. That and more at 5:30 and 10 on the next Arizona Horizon. That's all for this edition. Stay safe, stay dry. Have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Virginia G. Piper Charitable Trust. Committed to changing lives and strengthening community through investments in nonprofits and strategic initiatives. More information at pipertrust.org.